In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Stories of Hope Worldwide, hosted by Kerry Atherton. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerry, the founder of Stories of Hope, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
Welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope Worldwide. And today we have a very inspirational man with us. I looked up on his website, and in his up-and-coming book, the title is From Bouncing and Barbells to Ballet and Braids. And we have him here with us today. Welcome, Michael. How are you?
Good, thanks, Karen. Yourself?
Good, thank you. Can you just tell us a little bit about the title of the book first?
The book's called Who Knew? Basically, I was a big old tough bouncer for the first 49 years of my life, what would be described as, back in the old days, a man's man, where raised as boys don't really do this and girls do these sort of things. And then suddenly at the age of 49, I was blessed to have the chance to become a father to Charlie, my daughter. So a late starter, but suddenly life fell into perspective, and the reality of the facade that I'd been living until that point became glaringly obvious. So the book is a realisation of some of those.
So that title that I read out, that was just a bit of a description of the book. Really captures it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so became a dad at 49, at 51 a solo parent.
Yeah, at 51, Charlie's mum stepped out of her life and hasn't played any part in it for the last 7 years, since Charlie was just on 2 years old. But we separated at 9 months old and co-parented for a little while as best we could. But yeah, it's just been Charlie and I for the first 5 years until she was 7. And 2 years ago, I met my wonderful partner, Robin. So for the last 2 years, we still live separately, but we spend weekends together. So, on the weekends, I'm the equivalent of a dirty sock while the two girls get together, and I'm sort of cast aside.
It's so great that you've found a new partner and found great happiness in the later part of your life. And one of your sayings is, never miss an opportunity to be a beginner at something, because that's where everything starts. And I absolutely loved that when I read it. And it really is the telltale of your story, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it, Kerry. And that's what I say to my daughter all the time. But this is the beginning. It's not the end. Everything from here doesn't get easier. You've got to realise things don't change. The difficulty or the intricacies or all of the detail that you need to have to master this don't change. You get better. You're the one that changes. So if you want to be different, if you want to be better, you've just got to begin, and then it'll all fall in. So now is the time where it's at its hardest. Everything after that, it's getting easier for you because you're getting better. And that's what I'd say to her. That's the best thing about learning something new, is you can sit there and go, well, I'm better than what I was. It's not easier than what it was.
Yeah, I love that. So before we talk about your beautiful daughter, and is she 9 years old?
Yeah, 9 years old, going on 30.
Yeah, as they often are these days. Before we talk about the father-daughter relationship and how that's really changed your life, can we go back to, just to paint a bit of a picture for all the men out there that are listening, to what your life was like before you became a dad? And what were the things that were most important to you?
Growing up, I could often be described as colourful, definitely carefree, but life was pretty easy for me. I grew up, great family, great household, nothing but support from mum and dad. Had a few minor hiccups along the way, as we all do, but I, because of my size and boxing skills, I eventually ended up doing security for almost every rock band and performer that came through Melbourne back in the days. I worked for a great company, New Breed Security. So got to travel with rock stars, got to drive around with Whitney Houston's and Mariah Carey's and Bon Jovi's. And so it was a really great life. But because of this, I had no urge to settle down. I got to travel internationally as a strength and conditioning coach for professional sports people as well. I was a AFL strength and conditioning coach for a little while there, owned a couple of gyms. And at age 45, I honestly thought parenting had passed me by. So at 49, after a relatively short relationship to become a dad, suddenly the world changed. And I'd worked as a swim teacher for many years as well. So anything in the health and fitness industry I was into. So I loved kids, and I was normally the one, if there was a barbecue or something, I'd be surrounded by the kids and I'd be running amok. And part of the thing that I got the most enjoyment from was winding the kids up so that the parents would have to deal with them later on and not me. So it was like, yeah, and it was like, they were always going back to, Michael said that this thing, no, Nick, what are you doing telling them these things? So all of that happened, but I was also very driven by what other people thought of me. Other people's opinions mattered a lot. I definitely tried to fit into a stereotypical man's man. There were times where I got stabbed one night at work looking after a nightclub, and rather than go to hospital, it was, no, just, give me a bandage and we'll be right, and I'll have a drink. And just absolute stupidity. There's somewhere between stupid and reckless, and whichever end of the scale you wanted to classify that, I was about as far as you could go. So that led me to the point where during our relationship, I'd become quite sick and tired, but wouldn't go to the doctors. And 2 weeks after we separated, and it became an issue during the relationship, I had a small car accident after a big night out or a couple of days out, and I'd fallen asleep at the wheel and hit a tree. And it was just a slight accident, but they took me in to scan my neck. After they scanned my neck, they came back out and said, we actually want to scan you from the waist up if we can. And I said, yep, no worries. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. They scanned me from the waist up and said, the doctor will be through to speak to you. I waited, got to about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, you know what, I'm out of here. So I just got dressed and called a taxi home. At that stage, I was staying at my mother's house because we'd separated. About 7 o'clock in the morning, there's a mad banging at the door, and it's my mum saying the ambulance is on the way. They're coming to get you. You've got to go straight back into hospital. And so, as I say in the book, the amount of times my mother had been called and woken up, and Dad with, the first phrase on the phone being, don't worry, Michael's okay. But, between being stabbed and shot and bottled and all of these other things that had gone on, I think I added many years to my parents' life. So I went back into hospital and they whisked me straight upstairs, and my sister actually came in to take me in. And again, being myself, we stopped, and I made her stop and had a coffee and had something to eat, and then eventually got back into the hospital. And while we were in there, they explained to me that they'd found pulmonary embolism. So I had blood clots in my lung, legs, and they were really severe. And that's why I'd been so tired and short of breath for a month or so before we'd separated. And then right at the end, the doctor said, and then the oncologist will be through to discuss what we're going to do about your other issues. And I actually said, oncologist, I don't have a vagina. Why do I need an oncologist? And he said, no, that's gynecologist. I said, I got up and went home. And he said, well, we've found some lumps and bumps and some masses in your brains and some nodules in your lungs and some lymph nodes that need to be looked at. But we can't do any investigation until we've cleared the blood clots, because that's our biggest concern at the moment.
Yeah.
And my sister was outside the room. When she came back in, she said, so what was that? And I said, you're not going to believe this, sis, but, things aren't good. Can we go downstairs and get a coffee? So in that instant, that's why I explained to people, suddenly my life and the life that I built had become like a house, and it was on fire. There were flames leaping through the roof and smoke coming out the windows, and everything that I'd built and everything that I valued was in that house. And suddenly I was forced to decide what was it I was prepared to rush back in to try and rescue, if anything. And the only thing that came to me was what impact this was going to have on my daughter, who was 9 months old at the time. Would she remember me? What sort of hole would this leave in her heart or in her soul, growing up, knowing that dad had died? Would she even know anything about me because of, like a lot of separations, it was fairly acrimonious at the end. And yeah, so suddenly the only thing that mattered, and that's what I say in the book, sometimes there's that gift of clarity that only comes through crisis. Having been separated from her for 2 weeks, not having seen her while we were separated, then all of a sudden this, and it was just mainly everything that mattered was my daughter. And sadly, a lot of us need that crisis before we gain that clarity. And that's why I've managed to live the way that I have from that date forward, with the realization that, people's opinions don't matter, other things don't matter. It's just that connection of and satisfaction at the end of each day that Charlie and I are okay.
Yeah, wow. That's such an amazing story, and something I'm working on at the moment for my next book is those kind of light bulb pivotal moments in life that just catapult us into just a different way, or a major change or something. Because like you said, we go along for so long in the same pattern doing the same thing, and it's really unfortunate, isn't it? But sometimes it just does take that big wake up call to
It,
go bang, we need to do something different.
it was without doubt the best thing in my life, apart from my daughter being born. My daughter being born was great, but the light that this shone on all that I have to be grateful for, and the realization that the precarious nature of life, that we're all one diagnosis, one accident, one slip on the stairs away from a completely different tomorrow than what we ever imagined. It's just the greatest gift. I've never been more content in life than what I am because of that wake up call.
That's so amazing. And something that really resonates deeply with me about your story is that I had a very, very close relationship with my dad. And when I was growing up, my mum was an alcoholic, and it was my dad who played the pivotal role in my life for my role modeling, really, and my nurturing. And my mum didn't stop drinking till I was 12, but it was my dad that told me all about the facts of life, and my dad that spent the quality time with me. And he was a musician, and he had me taught the piano at 7. And I saw your daughter is learning the piano as well. And we would jam together all the time. And he was the one that I would talk to about the deepest, darkest stuff in here. And you talked before about the stereotypical male. And I've just done a world first pilot training on that very thing, and where we get our role modeling, where men get their role modeling from, about what a man should be and what a man should look like. My dad's father was very absent in his life because he was a musician who was out every single night at the Tivoli, and he had a violent mother. And so he just basically, he wasn't really taught how to grow up. He was just kind of thrown up type thing and had to teach himself. And he was somebody that was really in touch with the emotional side of his life. And that was something that he was able to model to my brothers. Often that's hidden, isn't it? And you were talking before about you're told, oh, you can't share your feelings. Men are told eat cement, harden up. But that's all different now, isn't it? And it's good and it's okay. And that's a really big message that I want to get across with this story today.
Yeah, it's great. My dad was a man's man. He left school before he finished primary school, never made it into high school whatsoever, went off to the war. And there are lots of things that Dad didn't talk about, but his affection, dedication and devotion to his family was never in doubt. His charity work, he raised ridiculous amounts of money for sheltered workshops and did so much for others. And it was always on us to be self-sufficient. But Dad would always take us aside if we'd mucked up. There was never a yell or a scream or, no corporal punishment unless Mum doled it out. But it was always, come here, what's going on?
Yeah.
And you'd say, oh, but Dad, he'd say, no, but that's on you. Why are you behaving like this? And he supported me 100% in everything I want to do. And when I look back, some of the things that he supported me on, I wouldn't support me on now, business ideas that I'd had, but he would always set the ground rules. You want to do this, this is what happens. You have to pay me back this much per week. If you don't pay me back, then I'm taking this. And Dad was just great. I couldn't have asked for a better role model, but he never shamed or embarrassed or degraded, spoke down about anyone. And yeah, so if we reframe masculinity, and that's why I say men are brave, we are providers, we are loyal, but we're loyal to values. So if we've got friends who are behaving in a way that's not in alignment with our values or not what we call decent or of good character, then we owe those values our loyalty, not them. We provide the example for our kids. We provide the role modeling. We provide how to behave and how to face up to life's challenges and victories. So, no good being all, yeah, look what I did. And then, but I didn't do well because of, some external influence. So we are providers. And disciplinarians, which dads are known for, the proper meaning for discipline is teach, not punish. So we're not known as punishers. We're known as disciplinarians. And we teach our children how to do things. And so, and as far as breadwinners, the problem I have with the whole primary and secondary caregiver things is as a sole parent, I'm classified as the primary caregiver, regardless whether I'm at work or not.
Yes.
If I was in a relationship, I would be a secondary caregiver. But when you look at the 20% of children who live in poverty and their outcomes, breadwinning is one of the most important parts of caregiving that you can possibly do. It's a lot of different names for it nowadays. It's whether it's called privilege or advantage or anything like that. But growing up in a house that has a secure income is one of the best launching pads for children, regardless. And we see that disproportionate disadvantage for kids who struggle. Even when they have great parents doing their best, their launching pad is a little bit lower than the others, so they get that bigger boost. So we need to move away from that, because even classifying parents as primary and secondary has the potential to not only diminish, but even damage the relationship between fathers and children, but also between mothers and employers. So it's, well, you're primarily a caregiver, so you're not as of much value as dad, who's primarily a worker. So it can work against them. But it's also allowed workplaces to be willfully blind to our parental responsibilities. You want me to work 80 hours a week, but I've got a kid. Oh, but can't your wife do that? No, because I'm a parent. We need to move away from that, mums and dads for some reason.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, for some reason, parenting is the last bastion of contemporary society that we haven't wanted to shear off the gendered nuances and assumptions from. We got rid of policeman and male nurse when I grew up, and stewardess, flight stewardess, and we got rid of all of that, and rightfully so. But we still, mother is a verb as well as a noun in this thing, and that's why I say to people when I get told, oh, you're a great dad, no, I want to be a great parent, because the bar for dads is set so much lower. Mums are judged so much harsher, and it doesn't serve anyone any good.
So true. Out there in society, social media world and everything, the perception is really, and I've heard a lot of mums say this to me, that they feel when they're asked, oh, what do you do? And they say, oh, I'm just a mum. That these days, that's not really accepted as being something of value. If you're not out there working as well as being a mum, or being a parent is one of the most, well, I reckon, the most wonderful thing in the world that I've ever done. It's my greatest achievement. And, regardless of if I never did another thing again, but had just raised these amazing humans, I just feel really blessed and think, well, I've done a great job. I've done the best I can. And I've done a great job. If that's all I ever do, that's enough.
Women wear the brunt of so much judgment no matter what they do when it comes to parenting. If they go out and they do it, get a good career, they get, oh, but what about your children? If they don't do it, then they're shamed for, oh, but, are you fulfilled? We put off our judgments and our values on other people so much, but, we all suffer that parenting guilt, dads and mums. The unique position I'm in, Kerry, is I get to sit in on conversations as a peer in both mums and dads. I get welcomed into the fold and I get to listen because, at Charlie's Ballet, I would be the only dad. At her gymnastics, when it was during the day before she was at kindy, I would be the only dad. So
the only dad that turns up.
Yeah, or the only dad there because most of them were off working.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But the funny thing was when it was gymnastics, if a dad did turn up, all of a sudden it became like a contest to see who could throw the kid the furthest in the foam pit. And it became like a circus act. But I get to listen to mums and dads speak openly and honestly to me. And if I could draw a Venn diagram over what they want and how they feel, it would be a circle. They have the exact same things. Dads feel like they should be more involved with their kids, but they're burdened by the fact that they're expected to be the breadwinners and that their family's meant to have a nice car and holidays and all of those things. And mums are burdened by the fact that silly thing about, oh, I'm just a mum, I should be doing more with their life. And the amount of incredible women that I would bump into that had simply stepped out of the workforce that had degrees in so many things and had studied hard and had all this experience, but when they became a mother, had stepped out of the workforce because workplaces weren't supportive of their parenting obligations, but also to that social expectation and pressure of really, like, you're going to trust your husband to do this, or, is your kid okay in daycare, or all of those things that just need to go out the window, just those outdated gender expectations.
That's right, outdated gender expectations, yeah.
Yep. Now, even some of the terms that we have, maternal instinct, only a mother's love, mother knows best, all of these fetishized images, hallmark card type images of motherhood might initially look good on the surface, but what they do is place immense pressure on mum, but they also make dads doubt themselves. So I know I was the same. Brought Bub home. Well, you're the mum. What do I do? So always deferring or asking mum what we should do makes us an assistant, not a co-parent. But for all the mums out there that are struggling with the normal frustrations of trying to raise an infant, everything from breastfeeding to colic to sleep deprivation, all the rest of it, when you're told women have this natural instinct, they just know, they don't. It's no more than dads. It's a learned skill that, and what works for 1 month with Bub, oh, she settles when I do this. Suddenly it stops working because your child develops, or they've got colic or all of the things. And a lot of mums doubt themselves. They're not only doubting their ability as mums, but they're doubting their actual womanhood because they've been raised right through society to this stuff's down to you. You just know it's just instinctual. Well, it's not. And it's not mother knows best. It's simply practice makes progress. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And so when dad comes home, mum's been with Bub all day, hands Bub over, and dad's right, I want to do it. And he can't do it and he can't settle Bub. And, he's unsure. And so he refers back to mum, and all of a sudden, mum's the manager, dad's the assistant, and the roles are set from there going forward. And that's where mums also then load the guilt up on themselves. Yeah, I'm going away for the weekend. Here's a list of what you need to do to keep Bub alive and fed. And it's just, it just all snowballs into one, and it just gets bigger, and the paths diverge further and further until dad's seen as, hardly involved. It also forces dad to go, you know what? I want to be the best assistant. I want to be the best partner. So I will do whatever mum asks of me. So constantly asking mum puts pressure on mum to know what needs to be done as well.
We're not even taking into consideration things like postnatal depression,
yep,
which I suffered from very badly. And as you're talking there, I'm just thinking about the fact that my husband was probably almost like a single parent for quite some time. while trying to look after me as well, because I was an absolute mess for quite a few months, and I didn't have any idea about babies. I'd never been around babies. I think because I lacked the nurturing of my own mum, because she was an alcoholic and she fell pregnant with me at 20. There was something missing. And so I didn't know how to look after a baby. And so my hubby was trying to look after me and trying to look after our daughter as well. I suffered from postnatal depression for a long time. And then when I had my second child, 4 years later, I suffered from that again. And this time he would walk around the house crying as well. When I would ask him for help, ask him, can you please take, can you take the baby? I just can't cope. He was crying, and I'm like, we're in a desperate situation together. We had no family around at that time. I can't even imagine what that would be like for a solo parent.
It's some people choose it now because the urge to have the family isn't dependent on having a partner, and
It really works for some people. Find it really
they have a lot of support.
That's the next thing that I was getting to. It needs to be a community of support, a network of support around any parent, doesn't it?
Yeah. At the moment in Australia, 1 in 5, that's what I say when I do my talks, I say, is there anything unusual there? And everyone say, oh, no, and apart from chubby little fingers, there's something that's uncommon, and that's the thumb. But at the moment, 1 in 5 single-parent households are dads. So while it's factually uncommon, the problem is now it's still seen as unusual.
Wow.
1 in 5. And the fastest growing family demographic in Australia is single father households. So a little bit of a good thing, showing that women's equality is taken to the point now where, they're prepared to go out and be the main breadwinner. Their careers have got to the point where, that they actually matter. But the single father households are estimated to increase between 40 to 65% by the 2041 census. And single mother households are decreasing in the same time, only by a smaller percentage, but the increase is coming out of nuclear families. So they're dropping it as a total. The problem with it's being considered unusual is I get it all the time. Oh, don't you work? Oh, no, I do. Oh, what happened? Oh, what happened to a mum? Oh, I don't understand how a mum could do this. And it's like, let's just replace mum with parent. I don't understand how a parent could do it. What happened to a parent?
Yeah.
Again, as you said, you suffer postnatal depression. Up to 1 in 7 men suffer postnatal depression as well.
Yeah.
But dads are reluctant to get help because we feel it's about mum. I've got to be the support. I've got to be the rock. I've got to be this. But a less than optimal dad can't support a mum. So dad needs to be on his game as well to do everything to support the other parent, and vice versa, because some men may have the postnatal or perinatal depression because, let's face it, man, woman or non-binary, it is such a huge change in life of once you're a parent compared to before.
Yeah.
And adjusting to any change that is that huge is going to take some time. So we need to be gentle with each other, and we need to be supportive.
Yeah.
I was very lucky because I had a village. My mum, Charlie's nan, amazing. My sister, amazing. But I had such a big group of amazing women to be able to take Charlie. She had a better social life than I did. Everyone wanted to take her out for coffee and cake and, well, not coffee, but, hot chocolates and cake. And when I had to work, I had a list of people that would, want to take her out for the day. And while I didn't always avail myself of them, just knowing it was there was a huge weight off my mind. So, I didn't have that precarious uncertainty in life that a lot of us have just gone through with COVID. It was, what? If needed, I'm okay because I have this village to help me raise Charlie. Whereas I think a lot of women, while they have a big group of friends they have on speed dial, they don't want to avail themselves of it because they don't want to be seen as failing as a woman or failing as a mum. And a lot of the times, the mums I speak to don't want to take up the offer of assistance because they know they're not in a situation to reciprocate. So they think, right, this wonderful friend has offered to take my kids for the day, but gee, if she asks me next week or the week after, I'm that strapped and I'm that close to the cliff edge that I wouldn't be able to do it. And so they want to appear, no, it's all fine. Whereas me, it was, I'm consciously incompetent. I had no weighted expectations. So no one expected me to be good at all this stuff. So for me to come forward and go, hey, this is happening. What's up with that? Is that nappy meant to be that color? Like, really? That's normal. And, I wasn't meant to be good at it. So I didn't mind, asking what I thought were silly questions. But the one thing that I never realized, I think the most common part of information that I would be given, and I don't know why I was given it, was the direction in which I should wipe her butt. Well, you can only wipe and have this choice. I don't know why you would think I would wipe and then, oh no, if you go the other one, it's like, really? And I think I would get that, even from strangers,
We're all learning as we go, aren't we?
Yeah, but the butt direction was the most common.
Oh, gee. Well, before we finish, I could talk to you for a long time. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2. Tell me about Charlie.
Oh, she's great. And because we have regular check-ins, so we have management meetings is what I call them. So we have these moments between the moments is in the book, and that's why I say to a lot of parents, today we're all stressed, we're all flat out for time, and we beat ourselves up over not having time. But there's always those moments between the moments where the real connection's made. The 15 minutes sitting on the bed at the end of the night, just having a chat about things after school. Just set aside, if you're at home during the school, there are times to connect there where you just, muck around, just where there's some nothingness, leave some space to fill with this nothingness. In the mornings, we get as much of our routine done at night time so that in the mornings, we can muck around, we can have time. We make a point of walking to school a couple of mornings a week where I don't book anything. And I volunteer at the school canteen one day a week just because I need to know the mums, because if I am running late, I need to be able to pick up the phone and, would you mind, taking Charlie back?
You just want to eat the sausage rolls, don't you?
Yeah.
And the lollies. Oh, no, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, but she teaches me piano now because Charlie has lessons. She teaches me, and I'm not the greatest student of many things, Kerry, but to hear myself coming back out of her mouth just fills me with that sense of confidence where I'm doing okay. Dad, you're doing your best, okay? You're getting a bit better, and just she talks me through it. Now it's what I say to her, no, you're just saying that, bub, to make me feel better. No, Dad, really, that was really good. And, so we have our management meetings where we'll check in, right, bub, how do you think I did as a dad this week? Yeah, no, pretty good. Anything I could do better? Oh, Dad, you were on your phone a bit the other night, when I was talking. Right, well, tell me off, bub. Like, phone goes away when we talk, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's so great.
That's why I say there's, the more mate said that love felt by the parent isn't necessarily experienced by the child because they don't have that developmental awareness of different things. So we need to be conscious of that and make sure that our love and parenting and acceptance isn't conditional or contingent on a certain set of behaviours, because while we're looking at making coercive control illegal for domestic violence, a lot of our parenting can be quite coercive. Do this and I'll approve. Don't do that and I won't approve. Do this and I'm going to withdraw my love and approval for a little bit. Behave in a certain way or do certain things and I'm going to approve and reward. So that whole reward punishment type thing it's a behavioralist type of parenting that's more suited to training puppies than raising secure, confident kids. So, they need to know that even when they're at their worst, that nothing changes.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And we've talked a bit about Disneyland before. So because of what you're doing now and speaking out, advocating, helping other parents, single parents, you got to go to Disneyland.
When I was going through the treatment for the illness, it was pretty hard and horrible. And what used to happen is I would have Charlie for the day, but I had to spend 6 hours in the car to have her for 4 hours, and 2 hours she would sleep because she was still an infant. So I'd drive all the way to get her, we hit the pool, and then after the pool, we'd have some lunch, picnic, and she would sleep. Then I would have to come back to get the treatment. The people at the hospital, the nurses and the doctors were that good, but because of the traffic being so bad, sometimes I would be running late and they would wait. And with radiation, you've got to be clear for 3 days away from infants because the radiation leaches out of your system and can affect infants. So if I didn't get the treatment on that Thursday night, I'd have Charlie for 3.5 days. And, we were 50-50 right from the start because of the illness, the thought that she should have the opportunity to bond. And again, the illness worked out great for me in that aspect. So they would wait because if I didn't get zapped on Thursday, I couldn't pick her up on Sunday. And so driving back, it was just such a hard, horrible, lonely thing knowing I wouldn't get to see her for 3 days until Sunday. But then going through it, it was tiring and it was hard. And then I was scared, so scared you wouldn't believe. Yeah. And the nurses and that, I would say to them, I can't believe I'm not going to get to take my kid to Disneyland and she's not going to remember me, and just all of the negative, dark thoughts where I even thought about, would she be better off without me here? So just some horrible things. And the nurses used to say to me, Michael, you're going to get to take her to Disneyland one day. And I said, well, I lived in America once and I've been to Disneyland as an adult, and I can't believe I feel like I've wasted it or done the wrong thing by not taking Charlie with me. So it was always get through this, Disneyland's on the future. And when Charlie was about 4 years old, Disney actually reached out and they'd seen some of my writings on a couple of other parenting websites, and they asked if they could do a story on us. So I said, yeah, that'd be great. And at the end of the story, when it came out, they said what a great response it had and asked me if I would be interested in tickets to a Disneyland. I said, really? So they sent through the tickets to Disneyland in Hong Kong, was our closest one. It was a struggle to get the passport as well. It took about 9 months without Charlie's mum. Trying to get a passport was a little bit difficult, but we got through that hurdle. We turned up at Disneyland and I'm going to cry again, sorry. When we got to the front gate, I lost it. I just cried like you wouldn't believe. I had complete strangers coming up. People had thought that I'd lost a child, or, Charlie's, what's wrong, Dan? Oh, no, but this is happy.
It's joy.
Yeah, and it was just, I think I was 5 years old and it was the most magical time, but it felt like suddenly all of the worry, because everything at that stage had still been built on a house of cards, still worrying about whether the illness would come back, still worrying about what role Charlie's mum would play in her life, whether she was going to come back, whether it was all temporary sort of thing. And then suddenly it was just that big exhale after that. It was, you know what? It doesn't matter. This is life going forward. Tomorrow's another day. I'm going to enjoy each day as it is. And, it's pretty good the way things work. I felt like it was a bit of a message from the universe.
Oh, that's so great. I've loved talking to you today. And I just think that you're an amazing dad, amazing parent, and you've inspired me so much. And I just feel so honoured to share your story. So thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks so much, Kerry. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for listening to Stories of Hope Worldwide with Kerry Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend or leaving a rating and review on your podcast player. If you'd like to find out more about Kerry Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find her next event. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode. And remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.